Okay, hello, welcome back to the game of chess. Today we're facing the move e4, so I'm going to go for a Sicilian defense today. We're going to try and play something a little less dubious, perhaps, than Alekhine's defense, and then we're going to go for g6 here and play a hyper-accelerated dragon. Now, the Sicilian dragon is characterized, generally speaking, by this fianchetto bishop. In fact, the etymology of the reason it's called dragon is because the pawn structure vaguely resembles the Draco constellation. Pretty cool stuff. Anyway, they play c3 here, clearly preparing for d4. We kind of get this little bit of an Alapin approach with knight f3. I'm going to fianchetto the bishop here, and if we see d4, then cd4, as in c takes d4, cd4, and then d5 here, giving them the opportunity to push past, which seemingly trashes this bishop's prospects along this diagonal. However, of course, it's natural to play a move like e6 here. We've got the pawn on d5. We need to probably defend it somehow. But before we play e6, we want to get this light squared bishop out. And we are going to do that by pinning the knight here. This is actually a line that I'm quite well prepped in. They immediately break the pin, which is an interesting decision. I'm going to play e6. I don't think this is optimal. I think maybe you could go for bishop b5 or knight c3 earlier. This is definitely a little bit passive. From white, although they might just want to castle very quickly, as we see. But then, of course, I'm going to move my knight to e7, and that f5 square is going to look extremely juicy for a knight, as well as c6, and we're going to be able to put a bunch of pressure, maybe even with queen b6 as well, on that backwards d4 pawn. A backwards pawn is a category of weak pawn where effectively it's fixed behind any pawn in the adjacent files. They play knight c3. Okay, and you might be wondering, should I castle first? Then maybe the knight comes into here. I don't really love that because you might be able to access d6. So I think, and this kind of plays into the whole idea of this opening, we've got this light square bishop out of here, right? If they play h3, of course we're not retreating because then g4 is going to trap our bishop. So if they play h3 and we go here, well then g4, and I mean maybe we can go to d5, but we might end up losing a pawn there. If h3, I am just going to trade off my light square bishop for this knight. And in general, you kind of want to keep your bishop pair unless literally every single one of your pawns. Now, by the way, I'm sure that a6 isn't the most accurate move here. I'm playing it kind of just to illustrate this point. You have what's known as a light squared pawn complex, and effectively that's going to act as a super strong domination of the light squares, at least in our territory, and maybe our opponents as well. Now, here, of course, we don't want to play b5 because they could just take, and if we recapture, we're going to hang a rook. I think knight c6, I don't really see any problem with that. And again, we're building pressure here. I kind of want to snatch this knight quite quickly, but I'm going to leave this bishop here to kind of tempt them into playing h3, purely because if they do play h3, I mean, any pawn pushed in front of the king is going to leave some kind of weakness. And here, I mean, let's just castle to get out of this potentially nasty pin. I mean, maybe b5 becomes an option pretty soon, and in fact it could be lovely to have b5 with a like knight a5 and knight c4 plan. But immediately, I mean, knight f5, hell yeah, we're threatening the pawn twice, we're threatening the dark squared bishop as well. And if we do see h3 here, actually, there's an interesting idea that we could approach the game with. And in fact, we could see it relatively quickly. Like we could take here and take here. The thing is, if they play h3, they weaken this sort of g3 and, you know, the dark squares around here. And then if we could take this as well, a g3 becomes this hole where a pawn from the f file or a pawn from the h file, you know, neither can actually defend that square, and maybe we can go and exploit that with some pieces. So I'm kind of hoping we induce the move h3. They have really overprotected this pawn, so I don't think we're going to be, you know, winning it anytime soon, but that's fine. I just don't want to rush taking this knight unprovoked. I think, honestly, b5 could be a really cool idea, because if you take with anything, we can just capture, like, you're not winning a rook anymore. And I mean, b5, we could bring the rook to the c file. Knight here, put something on c4. This could be looking extremely positional. Right, you know what? b5 with tempo, or rather b5 with tempo. I don't know why I said b5. I sound like the hunter from what's it called? The Looney Tunes Bugs Bunny. Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits. Anyway, little J. Cole reference right there. Do we take this is an interesting question, because this gets reinforced fine. The rook maybe gets probably made a little better, honestly, but also this pawn might be kind of weak. Again, g3. I think if we see h3, my plan is to trade and then take this, and then maybe even bounce this knight round to f5. But for now, why the hell would I not play rook c8? I mean, that just seems kind of like a no-brainer. Get the rook on the same file as that queen, and yeah, I think things are going relatively well so far. The only annoying thing is going to be if they can get away with playing a4 at this structure, which is going to mess it up. But at the moment, we can probably push past with b4, then play a5, and get a nice space advantage over here. So I do quite like this. They then bring the queen across, so I kind of lose my opportunity to trash the structure, which is maybe a bit annoying. And they might try and go in here, although with my knight defense for now. Okay, honestly, knight a5. I mean, it's protected by the queen. It's not exactly loose, so they have any like discovery tactic. So we're kind of fine there in that sense. Oh, you know what, guys? I mean, knight a5. It just looks so it's begging to be played. It is begging to be played. These squares are looking weak. We have a kind of light squared pawn complex, but our opponent absolutely has a bit of a dark squared pawn complex going on. I mean, of course, they've got this G2 pawn here, but if we look at the majority of their pawns, especially in the kind of relevant area of the board right now, it's all on the dark squares. And while our bishop isn't exactly the most active and triumphant piece right now, for sure later in the game, there we go, that's exactly what I wanted to see. Precisely what I wanted to see. Now we're going to take, we've been waiting for that. We've been waiting for that. Now, if you take with the bishop, I mean, hell yeah. Yes, please. Look at the state of these flipping knights. Now, if we take here, they're going to have to take, I mean, if we take with either knight, they're going to have to recapture with the pawn, which is going to render this a hole. Oh, just a simple tactic. Oh, baby. Oh, here, fork. Thank you very much. On your flipping forehead. There we go. Now, to be completely honest, trading off my very good knights for a small material gain. I mean, it's not a trivial material gain. It's certainly meaningful, and I've kind of committed to it now. I got a bit excited when I saw the prospect of the tactic, but we have one material here. Also, their pawn structure might be a bit shaky. So, okay, we cash in like this. Maybe the computer's going to like it, maybe not. Who knows, and frankly, who cares, because we got a game of chess to win. Honestly, starting with rook c4 kind of makes sense. If you go bishop back here, actually, you know what kind of makes sense? Bishop h6. I mean, my bishop's trash on this diagonal, but it could be extremely pleasant on this diagonal. There we go. Right, I think queen g5, we're going to try and build some pressure on the kind of, you know, the pressure points of the position, the potentially weak elements of my opponent's position. And again, in most endgames, I'm just going to be winning. In basically any endgame, I'm going to be winning because we're just up that material, so it gives us that nice buffer. And that's really cool, actually. I think the reason I got so excited about the tactic is because it's precisely the idea I've been talking about since putting the bishop on g4. The whole idea of, you know, knowing the bishop's on g4 and this bishop's on e3, and then being experienced enough in the position to actually understand that, you know, after h3, there's going to be a g3 hole if we can take that bishop and force the pawn recaptures. I think that's really sweet. I think that's probably some good opening knowledge. What the hell is that? Sorry, if I just attack this pawn, how do you defend it? Your rook can't come here now. You play king here? It would be a bold move. Then I think we just stack on the c file. Right, we start with queen g5. Because either you're losing a pawn with check... Oh, I'm an imbecile. Obviously, there's knight f... Okay. That was a bit stupid. I should probably chill out for a second. Although, again, vacating the c3 square, like, yeah, your knight's looking cool here, but right now we're clamping down on any prospect it has to come forward into the position. And also, it's like, how are you just stopping me stacking on this c file now? I don't think you are. I guess here, they could bring the rook across. And like this. And maybe we can move the queen with tempo of threatening to, like, take this. Maybe we could go queen g3. I think at least for now, it makes a lot of sense just to calmly lift the rook and play rook c8. I do have to be a little concerned about the open f file, probably just in future scenarios. I actually can't believe I missed that they could play knight f4 there. That was pretty dumb. But they now choose to reinforce the pawn. But again, you know, you don't want to be defending a backwards pawn while I'm stacking my rooks on my only open file. I mean, that is, it's not exactly the kind of priority. Okay, so of course we can't come in here, which we'd definitely like to do. I think, honestly, this is just a really improving move. You don't want any trade, so they're not going to come in and offer a queen trade. Here, they could drop the knight back, I'd say. No, but then we just take here. Right, queen g3. I think just positionally this game, and basically the point of queen g3, not only we kind of get some blockade in here and maybe some, you know, interesting ideas with, you know, approaching things from a little bit of a different angle, maybe massaging the position, let's say, but also opening up the threat of taking that knight. Now, yes, this is defended twice. Oh, I guess they're going to put the knight on c5. I'll sack for that any day of the week and then take this. 100%. How do I make any progress here, though, is an interesting question. They control a very annoying amount of squares. They don't control this square, though. Could do this, but I don't really see what that achieves. And I'm also running dangerously low on time. It's kind of like I've optimized all my pieces and I have no further progress to be made. Should we just improve the king? Do you know how funny that is to just improve the king here? I mean, you need to make a move. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Give me that. Sometimes, you know, we're up in exchange. You got to know when to sack it back for some intense compensation. And I think this is absolutely plentiful compensation because we can just recapture this. Should we take on e5 first? I don't think so necessarily. Because I mean, this is the passed pawn that's scary. Again, the pawn structure we have here is just beautiful. I did play king g7, I'll admit, hoping that they took there. That was a bit of hope chess, but also probably an improving move. Also adds just a layer of protection to this bishop, a little bit of security as well as we step off the back rank. And if we get, you know, if we get a trade, our king is one step closer to the center in an endgame. So at this point, we're now just up a pawn with better everything. And it's going to be pretty hard to argue, like, while this is hanging. I guess you have queen d4 here, but then just rook c4. And like, there's no checks. Whereas before my king was on g8, there was some tactics perhaps with a check. I don't know, this is actually really interesting to have played king g7. I'd like to see what the engine thought of king g7. I don't think it'll think it's a terrible move, but if it's anything close to the best move, I am going to be extremely proud of myself. You see, that's just, doesn't fill me with hope for your position here. We just bring the rook up. I mean, why the hell not? Yeah, you could go here, yeah, you could go here, but I could come to flipping e4, baby. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is problematic. The queen has to stay attached to the rook because our queen from g3 is putting pressure on that. This is a lovely game just to play, hopefully to watch as well, but this is just one of them games which is enjoyable, downright enjoyable. I'm having a great time right now because I'm not worried about anything. I've got such a secure position. I'm not even close to thinking about my opponents having any threats or any counterplay, really. Their bishop is cooked by my pawns, and you see, genuinely, one of the main differences in this endgame, obviously there are some trash pawns, obviously I'm up a pawn, etc. But it's the, you know, the reason I've got this kind of feeling of security that hopefully, okay, is that not just free? Anyway, is because like their bishop is killed by my pawns and my bishop is complemented by my pawns. Do we take here? Do we take here? If I take here with check, and you take, and I take here, I mean, I think this is just the simplest way to go about things. You're not going to defend this, it's on a dark square. And check there. And I'm just going to liquidate this because we've played a very methodical and I think precise game. Now we're just up a bunch of material. We've got connected passed pawns. We got the rook. Probably don't even need the rook to win this game, honestly. And again, we don't even have to really give any counterplay here. Although my rook has no moves right now, really. I'm just going to push this, get behind, and, you know, start making some progress. No need to give them any... Actually, I guess I could have taken, diverted the bishop, and then come up. That would have been interesting. Now we go here, they come across. I mean, bang. This probably was not the most precise way to go about things, but let's bring our king in, you know? That king from... let's just hold this out. The king that we already improved to g7. Honestly, just keeping your king active in an endgame is also just crucial, practically speaking. Let's go here, because if you take, I'm just going to push. Yeah, you're going to have to give up that bishop, probably. We just sort of actively defend our pawn. The only threat is that we somehow get flagged, but I really don't see that being even close to a concern. Let's go here and here and here. No, not quite like that, but let's at least make this move. 23 seconds, though. It would be quite heartbreaking to lose this game on time. Okay, things are getting quite easy now, I think. If you go check, we can come in here. It's a pre-movable move right there, I think. Actually, what if they like take this or something? You know, can never be too careful. And we do just have two connected passed pawns. I mean, pretty hard to argue that this is anything but very winning. 21 seconds is absolutely plenty of time. Hopefully I can handle this endgame as cleanly as I've handled the rest of the game. It'd be nice to end this in a precise manner. What's my plan? Rook here or rook here and here? Oh. Here. You just can't, like, get in, right? Oops. Honestly, complete accident. Rook f8, of course. Noticing that pretty nice, but there we go. Resignation. Nice. Okay, so here we are in the analysis. You can see 92% with one blunder here that was apparently playing b5. Oh, damn. Damn, b5 was a blunder. That's tough. However, after this point in the opening, after knight a5, we got an advantage and then just converted it beautifully. So honestly, let's go through that game. b5 being a blunder is kind of upsetting. I'll be completely real. I'm excited to see what the engine says about king g7. Anyway, let's open the Masters database just to see if we have any correlation between our game and the Masters game. Okay, so c5 here, and then we go for this hyper-accelerated dragon, as you can see. If I just tab up here so you can see the database for the first few moves. cd4, cd4, d5, e5, bishop g4, top master stuff, and then yeah, bishop b5, I think I mentioned, or knight c3, which I also mentioned, are the top kind of responses. Bishop e2, much less in the sort of masters database, also much more passive, a little bit of an inaccuracy here, but again, nothing really wrong with that. Knight c6, oh no, I didn't play knight c6, I played e6, which actually has been played 4 times in the masters database, and black's never lost, so I'll see that as an absolute win. E6, here, 97, beautiful. And then after a6 was where I deviated. Okay, a6 of course wasn't ever going to be the best move. However, there is something to be said for cutting down on ideas of knight d6. Also, I just wanted to illustrate that point with the pawns on the light squares. But it's on a6 and move 9 that we deviate from the master's database. Here they go for the check. Knight defends, perfect. Here, castles, a3, knight in, and damn. Okay, so the reason this was a mistake was less because it was a mistake and more because it was a missed win, which, I mean, you can kind of see graphically here. Instead of b5, the engine wanted me to take this now, and after pawn takes? Okay, I've just looked at the computer line. I'm not mad at myself for not playing this yet. I think the idea of waiting for h3 and getting this whole idea with the g3 pawn was absolutely correct. In terms of a good understanding of my opening, in this specific position, there happens to be after takes here, bishop h6, which, okay, that's not too hard to see. But if rook d3 defending the pawn, then there's bishop here, and they either give up a rook or give up the pawn after retreating, which obviously would be a bit of an L. Also, this pawn would probably fall later, especially with queen b6, and attacking this pawn. Basically, their center kind of falls apart. But instead, after bishop h6, if they push the pawn, we have to play b5, importantly removing the queen's defense of this pawn here, so the queen, let's say, goes back to c2. Then we have to remove the defender, take here, and after rook takes, pick up that rook. I mean, you know, there are tactical complications or tactical denouements of a middle game, and I'm not mad at myself for missing this one. This was quite complicated because, you know, you put one step wrong. If you take this, go here, and they push the pawn, and then you try and remove the defender and go like check and move, then like if you didn't play b5, the queen's still going to be defending this, so, you know, in your calculation you'd have to see that b5 removes any square for the queen to defend this. I mean, okay, it's a complex line. It's a fun line though, it's a cool line, and certainly it gives me something to think about in the future if I get these kind of positions. However, we play b5, which, you know, it says blunder. It leaves us with minus 0.7, which is precisely, or not precisely, but very close to what we had before, so, you know, very much this is a missed win rather than a blunder, and still a good move. b5, rook c8, can't really be a bad idea. It likes queen b6, knight a5, a bit inaccurate, although knight a5 after they play h3, threatening the idea of takes here, and then the knight comes into c4. The queen's got to move, obviously. We take that bishop and then go into g3. I mean, finding the best continuation there. Nice. I was kind of a bit upset to lose both of my knights, you know, just purely on an emotional level, and so that's why I kind of rejected the line straight after playing it. However, it was clearly a great idea. Then bishop h6 is lovely. Queen g5 is lovely. They do go for knight f4, of course. Lift the rook. I mean, bring the rook across, and this was just a well-converted endgame. Hold on. Okay, so letting the engine think, queen h4 is marginally better than queen g3, but queen g3 is the second best move, which is lovely. A kind of positional, you know, suffocating kind of chess playing here. This is not really my usual style, but I mean, they go back with the knight. King g7, right? How bad was that? Okay, king g7, obviously not a bad move. We did have rook c1, because if they take, obviously there's this problem with the queen on g3. So, okay, that makes some sense, and at least rook c1 would have been that kind of infiltration I was looking for. I kind of, in my head, I thought for a second about rook c1. I was like, hey, no, because the knight can take. But of course, noticing that queen is overworked there is pretty interesting. And the point is, by the way, taking is their best move, because if they don't take and they play something like king here, then we can go check. Sorry, not check, but we can take here. And if you take with the rook, then I think we can go here, here, and like this, maybe? Comment if you've seen a better line. I'm not really going to look into this particularly. However, they do go knight here. I then immediately find the rook sacrifice because, you know, it seems kind of obvious, but then we just have this beautiful position. Rook up and over. Easy little conversion now. Pushing the pawns nice. And I mean, from here on out, if we sort of look at the graph, this was extremely smooth. Bring the king in. Lovely, lovely technique here in the endgame. And then pretending to blunder a pawn, even to my audience, to then play rook f8. With two connected pass pawns, a rook. Even though I have 14 seconds, I think I'm going to win this game. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. The elo is now at 2187, which is nice and close to 2200. I'm going to be taking this lead chess rating, as I said in the last video, very seriously. Well, not very seriously, but I'm just not going to be playing on stream, for instance. I'm going to be playing my best chess when I play on lead chess for these kind of videos, and really seeing if I can push that lead chess rating nice and high. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. There'll be much more to come from the channel in the future. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Hasta la vista.